If someone were to ask you that question, what is the core healing modality for most people? Is it straight to the emotional work?
I would say it's the emotional healing and the samskaric and all of that, where the wound healing combined with actually removing toxins from the system, because the toxins create the inflammation. They create the cellular disharmony. So you remove toxins from the gut, you remove toxins from the liver, from the organs, from the brain. Cleaning this brain with things like melatonin, liposomal, or suppositories, glutathione, to chelate the brain is phenomenal. So anything that can protect and heal the brain and heal things on an intracellular level where that cell becomes electrically correct with the right minerals, that is how a human being heals, because the body is unbelievable at being able to repair and restore once it has what it needs. And then also sleep. Sleep is going to be part of the core. Self-honesty is going to be part of the core. Detox is just a fancy word, or a word that gets thrown around a lot, but you can't detox unless you also have the right minerals and you also have regeneration. So the peptides are amazing for regeneration, but you still need to remove toxins from the cell. We call it, there's restore, which is where you like rejuvenate, restore. Then there's remove. It's generally a process of removing, but also restoring. These are two very, very important things to keep in balance.
Josh Mason, long time no talk.
Glad to be back.
I guess last time we saw each other in person was in Kauai
Yeah. 2021.
2021. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have since built quite a business, helping people detoxify, people pursue healthy lifestyles, biohacking. I'm not sure what all umbrellas you put it under, but um, I think what is the most valuable place to start is just like, who are you and what is your story and how did you get into all this detox stuff in the first place?
Totally. Yeah. So I like to explain that I had three different lives in three different lifetimes in this life. I had my life before I got ill, which was when I was a jiu-jitsu world champion, Pan American champion. I was traveling around the world competing in jiu-jitsu, like super fit, could eat whatever I wanted, was working at different companies, making good money, living in New York City, and honestly could do whatever I wanted whenever I wanted. Like I could eat a pie of pizza and compete in jujitsu 3 hours later. I didn't understand that there were limitations. I didn't understand that. I personally, I thought people who had depression were mentally weak. That's the vantage point that I came from back then. So I will call this arrogant bro Josh. Right. And then I had another lifetime that started in October 2013 when I got severely ill. Okay. We're talking tormented mental thoughts, panic attacks, despair, depression. I mean, I was feeling suicidal. I literally every single day was a challenge to stay alive. I couldn't sleep. I was getting full body panic attacks in the middle of the night. I was getting like electrical shocks throughout my whole body. I can. I'm happy to talk more about that illness. I'll just tell you. Then my third lifetime was actually healing and recovery from that, and all that I learned about the earth, about spirit, about love, about limitations of a human being, and also about
Mm.
health and reclaiming agency. I was a normal person living in the normal culture, following the rules, so to speak, and I got extremely, extremely life altering illness from just following the program. Let's call it that. Um, and yeah, maybe I should unpack that middle lifetime a little more. I'm sure people
Yeah,
are interested.
well,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, a lot of those symptoms you dropped they sound very gnarly.
yeah,
And as we connected when I was going through my own health stuff, which I've still go through, but I've made a lot of progress. I never got to that level that you're describing. So I guess I'm curious, like, I don't know, what were the triggers if you ever identified them? What was the progression? What was it like experientially just to be in that? I mean, I know how scary the uncertainty can be, right? When things are just going out of
yeah,
control.
yeah. I felt like I was tripping on drugs 24/7. So as if you
Jeez.
were taking acid, or as if you were taking eating quadruple dose of weed brownies when that hits that peak, and you're like, holy
Hmm.
shit, am I going to be okay? Like, am I ever going to come back? I lived there for almost 4 years.
Fuck.
Now, it at that when you sustain those kinds of spaces, you're obviously not as altered, and it's not drug. There's no drug, so it's not drug induced, and it's different. But that level of loss of agency, of loss of hope, of loss of faculty, and feeling like you're even in this body,
Hmm.
that was something that I had to live with nonstop for 3.5 years. I felt like I was going crazy. I felt like all I wanted to do was just to stay alive for another few hours at the worst of the worst. I was literally just trying to stay alive until 2 p.m., until 4 p.m. Okay, now just go to sleep, Josh. Tomorrow it'll be better. And I would tell this to myself every single day, multiple times, hundreds of
Jesus.
times a day.
Yeah.
Um, the torment is something very hard to explain unless someone's been through it. It's as if you're a prisoner in your own body. It's as if your mind is this demon, this weapon that's just slapping you, slamming you. It's like it's just a torment, really. I mean, I used to hope that I used to feel jealous of people who were physically tormented. I used to think like
Mm.
physical torment
Wow.
would, when I would watch like movies and stuff, because that's all I watched when I was sick, like World War II movies and POW and all different
Hmm.
heroes' journeys. And I was like, I wish I could have just been a POW for these 4 years. I think I would have been able to handle it. Like this, I can't
Wow.
handle. Um,
Was it
and yeah,
ever? Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was
go
just,
ahead, go
is it,
ahead.
was it ever diagnosed, or like, did you ever pinpoint what was going on, or like what? So,
So the first step was the first step I tried was actually just to keep drinking and taking like Xanax and random drugs and alcohol, and that
mm,
obviously didn't work at all. And I think I tried that for like 3 to 5 weeks, and then I broke down and told my family, and then I went to the psychiatric route. I probably went to about 3 different psychiatrists, and they all had similar diagnoses, but as someone dives deeper with my work, like the diagnosis is not really something that I rested on whatsoever. I mean, after
mhm,
4 to 5 months of trying the drugs, the medications, when I had tried probably 10 or 12 different types, Latuda and Zoloft and Trazodone and sleeping pills and all this stuff. Eventually, I flushed them all down the toilet, which I don't recommend. And yeah, I basically said I don't give a shit about any of these diagnoses. But yeah, it was rapid cycling bipolar, and it was major depressive disorder, and it was major anxiety disorder, and so
mm,
they're just labels. Now, what actually happened to me versus what was put on me as a diagnosis are two totally
mm,
different things. Do you want me to
mm.
start going into that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm curious. Yeah, did it all hit you like at once? Was this a gradual thing? Like, how did you just go from happy one day to this depressive state the next? Like, what was the progression?
So it was like a 2 to 4 week period of time where I started dipping. I didn't notice it at the time, and I probably just drank more or tried to pick up more women or trained more jujitsu to make up for it. But in hindsight, I was kind of clawing my way out of an inevitable hole that I didn't. I did
Mm,
the portals; those dark portals didn't open until October 2013. There was one moment in time when I specifically remember the portals opening, and by the way, they did not close for another 4 years after that. But the
mm,
portals opened when I was, and I say the portals opened because it was like whatever mental pain I had had in my lifetime prior to this was like a Swedish massage compared to what happened in October 2013 when I I, I was using this butyl machine at my dad's office, helping him with some things, and he runs a window and glass company, and I was shooting this butyl, and I all of a sudden heard a voice that was not my own voice, and it was like, go kill yourself, basically was what the voice said. And from that moment in time, for 4 years, I basically did not regain my center or my sense of
wow.
self. And so and that voice, let's call it, was something that was just tormenting me nonstop for the next 4 years.
Wow.
And so
So it
I
was a
was
sudden.
what's that?
I'm sorry. It was the voice did appear suddenly in that way.
It did.
Just
It did.
yeah.
Yeah, it did. And the fear and the chemicals that changed in me from that voice and from the just the level of intensity of darkness just turned up that day. I never
Mm.
got turned down for a long time.
Forget multivitamins and other supplements. Animal organs are the most nutrient dense foods on the planet. You can get 100 times more nutrients from organs than you can from muscle meats. But the problem with eating organs is that they are difficult to find in stores, they are difficult to prepare, and even when they are prepared well, they often don't taste great. Thankfully, Heart and Soil Supplements has made consuming organ meats so much easier by providing powderized organs in capsule form. Organ meats include everything your body needs to thrive: vitamins, minerals, peptides, proteins, and growth factors. This is why organ meats were the most prized foods for our ancestors. Fortunately for us, Heart and Soil makes these treasured foods easily accessible. So go to heartandsoil.co today and use discount code BREEDLOVE to get started on your journey to optimal health and vitality. Again, that's heartandsoil.co, discount code BREEDLOVE. What if I told you that you could lower your tax bill and stack Bitcoin at the same time? Well, by mining Bitcoin with Blockware, you can. New guidelines from the Big Beautiful Bill allow American Bitcoin miners to write off 100% of their mining hardware investment in a single year. That's right, a 100% write off. So if you had $100,000 of income or capital gains, you could write off that entire amount by investing it in Bitcoin mining hardware. Blockware's mining as a service allows you to start mining Bitcoin right now with minimal effort. Blockware handles everything from securing the miners to sourcing low-cost energy to configuring the mining pool. They do it all. You can stack Bitcoin at a discount every day and save big when tax season comes. So you can get started today by going to mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Again, that's mining.blockwaresolutions.com/breedlove. Wow. And when you say the portals open, I mean, like at the time you're going through this, I would imagine you don't have any idea what's going on, right? You're just
No, I wouldn't
hearing a
have even
voice
used
and
those words. Yeah, I would never have used those
yeah,
words back then.
right. So what does that, can you just like double click on that? What does that mean when you say the portals open? Like now sitting where you are today, what do you think was going on?
I think that this is a very fragile, sensitive filter, this mind. And I think that toxins, trauma, stress, and tension accrue in a human body, and they accrue after year after year after year after year. And I think that eventually what happens is you're left with I mean, mental illness and physical illness is on a spectrum, because a lot of people that don't have major symptoms are still, kind of fucked somewhere, in my opinion,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, but what happened to me is that my body hit that body burden point where I could not handle the toxins, the stress, the trauma, and the tension, all that I was doing to myself, the lack of care, the lack of love, all my childhood history, all of the toxins, my mercury fillings, the parasites, the sushi I was eating, which is more mercury, all the heavy metals in the environment. And I hit that point where my body shut down. And mental illness is an after effect. It wasn't the root.
Hmm.
It was an after effect
Hmm.
of a cellular collapse. And when I say portals, as above, so below. So when the body is that ill and the cells are that sick, this mind will go to a new radio station. Okay. And the
Sure.
radio station that it goes to is the land of the dark. And I think that that
Mhm.
that is I watched my radio station turn to a new dial, and I could not turn it back for 4 years.
Mm.
Um, and so when I say portals, I'm talking about the realm of hungry ghosts. I'm talking about very, very dark beings that that have their way with people in these kinds of spaces. You can look at the extreme, which would be like a homeless person on the street who's doing extreme drugs. They fracture this device, this mind, and you
Mhm.
see what comes in. You see the way their faces, you see the expressions they make, the sounds they make. Those are beings, if you will, that infiltrate a human vessel. And I was on the interface of being, taken in that direction.
Wow, that is
Yeah,
intense.
yeah,
But it does make a lot of sense, right? That the body, well, the mind is part of the body, right? So it's a psychophysiological experience. We always have this dichotomy like mind and body, but the reality is they're one thing. Um, and if the body is suffering from all of the things you just laid out, right? Parasites, heavy metals, other toxins, et cetera, then the mind just becomes almost like a representation of that, right? So maybe
Yes.
when you're hearing that voice kill yourself, your mind is like, fuck, our whole system is ruined. So just abort mission kind of thing. Is it something like that? It's like the body is just, you're just taking on too much and then the mind follows?
Yeah, I think that the inflammation that's caused from these toxins, the degradation of cells and the cellular health, and when the toxins get inside the cell, basically it becomes a systemic issue. Your
Mm,
blood, your blood-brain barrier, the brain, all of these things, the liver, these things are all very interconnected. And when they start going down, the mind just follows suit. I mean, I've worked with a lot of Navy SEALs and guys who are elite mental samurai warriors, and they get sick. They can still stay afloat and they can still cope, but they still are feeling extreme illness at times. And
mhm,
so, no matter how strong the mind is in terms of what you've cultivated, let's just say
mhm.
the brain begins to connect to the wrong station, right? Because you can train the mind, but when your actual brain is diseased or unhealthy or inflamed, toxic, it's real. You're climbing uphill. Does that make
Mhm,
sense?
mhm. No, it totally makes sense. And I've also just experienced a more limited version of that many times. Like when I was really in the throes of the gut inflammation, actually, when we were working together was
Yeah.
part of that period. When I would have a flare up, everything would go, right? Like my mood, my ability to focus, my everything was just like, it was just terrible. And so I can appreciate that axis, that connection between mind and body, although I'd never been in quite the severity you were in. What I mean, you sit here today, like the picture of health. You do this now for a business, so you obviously found the road to recovery, right? What does that look like, and what false turns did you take along the way?
Totally. Well, let's talk about the faults because that's the that's a big one. So, um, I started by after the psychiatric route, I tried to then take some holistic measures, and I actually went to the Amazon jungle and I did 31 ayahuasca ceremonies over the course of about 9 or 10 months and multiple visits. I lived in the Amazon for 6 months in one stint, and that's we can talk a lot about that. That's a big journey. I mean, ayahuasca is intense. It's full on. It's not for everyone. And I would say I'm not a huge fan in hindsight of
Mhm.
blasting a human brain with psychedelics, but happy to answer any questions on that. But long story short, I after that I was about to take the iboga route because I had already tried fasting, juice fasting, sweat lodges, and meditations, mantras, chants, and yoga, and ayahuasca, and distilled water fasting. And I mean, just my spiritual practice was full time, every single day, self care. All I did was caddy at a country club because it was mindless, and I would carry the 2 golf bags and make my 150 bucks, spend my money on my health, buy supplements, fast, pray, chant, and meditate. And I did this full
Wow.
time for almost 3 years, and then go to the jungle when it was the winter in New Jersey, so I couldn't caddy. I couldn't hold a normal job. Believe it or not, in hindsight, I caddied, and the caddy yard was filled with heroin addicts. If you ever go to a caddy yard, or if you're a caddy, you know there's a lot of drug addicts there because it's easy cash, um, and it's relatively mindless work, relatively. And it was funny. I wasn't a drug addict, but I felt in the same spaces. I
Sure.
felt tormented to the same degree. Here I was like this, perfect daily routine of drinking distilled water, greens juice, eating perfectly, and I'm working with degenerate heroin addicts every single day. But I feel like them.
Mm.
I felt like
Fuck.
them, um, and um, and so eventually, I just kept going down that route. It wasn't working, and my final chance at life was, and this was after 3.5 years, was to go to the jungle a fourth time and do iboga. in Gabon. And I had bought my flight. I paid a shaman, opened up credit card debt. And then I had very, very miraculously in the 48 hours before that flight, which I believe that would have killed me if I would have went to Gabon. I'm certain that would
Mm.
have killed me. I was already 30 pounds underweight, emaciated, couldn't digest food, just tormented every single day. Felt at that point in time, at the end, I felt like my brain was on battery, was being burned by battery acid. I'd had physical feelings of my brain being burned. Okay. And the only way I can describe it is like it felt like battery acid. And there's only a couple other people who have ever told that to me. And they've all had the same thing that I had, which is severe mercury poisoning. Okay.
Wow.
And so I found out about mercury poisoning online through a story when I was 48 hours away from getting on that plane. And I broke down in tears and I called my mom in the room. I was living with her at the time. And I called my dad on the phone and I just said, guys, I was 2 days away from going to Africa. You don't understand what I've been through in these last 3.5 years. I've spent every penny I have. I have no money, no will left. I need help. And I think I found out what it is. And I showed them an article, and it was from an amazing woman named Connie Fox, an angel, really, really beautiful woman, and an unbelievable spirit. And she had the same thing that I had 10 years prior. And she wrote multiple blogs about it. And it was the first time I had ever related to another human being about mental illness. I had read hundreds of books on mental illness, on all different kinds of shamanic initiations and this and that. Her story was the only thing that hit me hard. Um, we're talking about little details like a cabinet door could almost set me on my ass. Like a cabinet door closing too hard would shock my spine, and I feel like I would almost be put to my knees. Not quite, but like where
Wow.
I would be altered for 20 to 40 minutes from a cabinet door closing too hard. That's the level of nervous system frying. Okay, and she said the exact same thing. She said the exact same thing, and I was shocked to have ever heard another human being go through that. And so, um, when I broke down to my family, I showed them the story, and they said, "Well, we don't. Okay, maybe this is true, probably not, but we'll help you." And that was the
Mm.
first time I had ever had my help from my parents after 3.5 years.
Mm.
That is when I began the true journey, which was a journey of gut healing, mast cell stabilization, mucous membrane and tight junction healing, binders, heavy metal chelation, excuse me, parasite killing, and a few other things along the way that have completely changed my life. And I don't even know who that guy, I have no understanding of who that guy was. I literally, like I said, it's a different lifetime. Um, and recovery isn't even the word. I just don't even know who that guy is. It's a new lifetime.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, almost like a spiritual resurrection or something, right?
It
Where
was.
you
It
completely
was.
become someone else and then you start
Yes.
becoming yourself again.
Yeah.
What so w- was it the mercury poisoning then? Do you think that was like the day you first heard that voice that told you to kill yourself? Was that like the mercury poisoning kind of crossing the threshold, or was this multiple things? Like,
It's
um,
always more. It's always multiple things. Okay.
yeah.
Um, Mercury, I would say, was the largest poison of anything that the most impactful poison of anything that I had going on. Okay, this is a poison that degrades the neurons and the myelin sheath. This is a poison that destroys the gut and the gut lining, alters your consciousness. They call it Mad Hatter, right?
Hmm.
Um, and all of these things, the mercury was the most sinister of all of the poisons, but it wasn't the only thing. Okay, there were, there was spiritual thing going on, which we can get into. It will take us deep down a rabbit hole. Things like entities and noxious energies that were, trying to whatever take me out, let's say, or at least take me out of the light. Um, there was trauma from childhood, stress and tension, and constant stress and tension from just doing jujitsu and drinking and all of this stuff. Didn't know how to release tension, didn't know how to actually heal trauma. I didn't know how to actually communicate with myself. So I was just putting more and more and more and more stuff onto my plate, right?
Hmm.
And so they all culminate together to create that level of a collapse. But I will say the mercury was the most potent of the poisons.
Okay, so then you get this article, you discover about mercury poisoning from this angelic woman. This is the point where you actually get on the actual road to recovery, I guess, right? You've now
Correct.
found at least what the primary vector is, and you know what you need to do about it. You mentioned a list of things there. I don't know if you want to go through those, like what are those things? Like heavy metal
Sure.
chelation binders, et cetera. Like this is when you start becoming the detox dude, basically.
Yeah.
I would guess.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'll tell you, it was a crazy way that I became the detox dude. I wrote an article after I basically survived this thing, and I was still in the shitter, but I was coming into the light and having my resurrection, and it went viral on this random dude's this detox. Like, he's a different person who did detox, and it went viral on his website. And I was giving free advice away over email for like 60, 75 days, and eventually I was like, wait a minute. I wonder if I charge like $200 or $100 for a call or some emails. I wonder if
hmm,
people would pay. And then I just started the Detox Dudes. I started my own website. But
hmm,
to answer your question, we can dissect everything. So from what I've discovered at this point is, the first thing was the mast cells and the leaky gut. That what happens is when you have severe metal poisoning, all of these parts of the body get really, really damaged. Okay, and when you have that level of leaky gut and you're inflamed every day, as you would know because you had similar situation in the
mhm,
past, um, it's very, very difficult to heal. It's very, very difficult to have any sort of clarity, and the brain actually will stop detoxifying when the gut is inflamed. Okay.
mhm,
And you can't digest well, you can't absorb nutrients. So the way that we healed that was through a mast cell stabilization process. We used something called ketotifen, which is a magical antihistamine and mast cell stabilizer. It's from a compounding pharmacy. And once you do that, you can start taking a bunch of binders, things like citrus pectin, bamboo charcoal, coconut charcoal, microsilica, and Turos gel. These are negatively charged substances that grab onto the toxins that are floating around in the gut. And they help tremendously with the nervous system once you grab onto these things. It's life altering. And at this point, I've seen probably upwards of 1,000 people go through the same process as me, and heal in deep ways without even removing the heavy metals from the cells, just from binding to free floating toxins that are circulating around the gut. Okay.
I see.
And so after that, then we go through a parasite cleansing phase, right? And I did all of this back then, and I still do elements of this to this day, where I actually had to remove worms from my system because
Mhm,
because I was so acidic, because I was so sick, and I believe actually almost everyone has worms anyway, but
mhm,
I was an extreme case, and I had hundreds of worms come out. I have photos of them: rope worms, roundworms, tapeworms. I mean, things that look like they came out of the ground. Okay,
crazy.
and so that had to be removed, and then I had to purify my liver, and then I had to remove heavy metals from inside the cell, which is a whole different dance. That's called
Mm,
intracellular chelation, and those are things like ALA and EDTA and cilantro and wheatgrass and wasabi and DMSA and DMPS and all of these things. um, and so and so I went through that journey, and that's to actually restore harmony to the cell, because once the cell grabs onto a metal, it's very, very difficult for that cell to ever, it's going to be an acidic, unhealthy cell for the rest of its life. And when you have
mm,
too many heavy metals, this is very, very problematic for the human body. Okay. And the other pieces I mentioned were the spiritual pieces, right? And so the way I describe it now is you have a core wounding of a human being, which is just, we'll call this core essence of a person, and they have wounds and they have traumas and they have pain. These toxins come on top of it and act as a layer on top of it, making
mm,
everything worse and making it very, very difficult to heal. Okay. And same with the tension and the stress and the way that people are living. So you have to kind of remove that thing in order to even, start feeling the core essence. But but yeah, I had many, many wounds from from past lives as well, which is a whole other can of worms. But
The can of
yeah,
worms, great metaphor.
yeah.
Uh, so Bitcoin custody is evolving. Onramp is pioneering a new model, multi-institution custody, which eliminates single points of failure and adds fault tolerance to your setup. With Onramp's multi-institution custody, your funds are auditable on-chain, cannot be rehypothecated, and can only be moved with your explicit direction. Multi-institution custody simplifies private key management, providing unparalleled peace of mind for you and your loved ones. Onramp also helps you seamlessly tap into financial services like trading, inheritance, loans, and more, all without compromising on accessibility. So schedule a consultation with the Onramp team today to learn more at onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. Again, that's onrampbitcoin.com/breedlove. One of my highest health priorities is keeping my brain in top shape. To take care of my brain power, I do many things, such as striving to read, write, exercise, and meditate daily. One of the latest tools in my brain power toolkit is MindLab Pro. MindLab Pro is a nootropic supplement that is scientifically proven to enhance your brain power. When I take MindLab Pro, my mind feels like it has a better grip on the world, my thinking is more lucid, and the articulation of my speech is radically improved. MindLab Pro has been tested in rigorous, double-blind, placebo-controlled human trials and has been proven to enhance brain power for users in every age group. MindLab Pro is an advanced formulation of 11 nootropic ingredients and is backed by research from over 1,400 human trials conducted over the past 32 years. So if you're looking to enhance your brain power, MindLab Pro is an excellent solution. Go to mindlabpro.com/breedlove to start enhancing your brain power today. Again, that's mindlabpro.com/breedlove. All right, that's interesting. Then the toxins form a like physical layer almost on top of the emotional, spiritual body. And so you kind of need to, you actually do the physical purification. You're doing this in layers, basically, right? You purify the physical layer and then you can go deeper into the emotional. Can we talk a little bit about that? Like, again, I've shared some of this publicly, but the last year or so, I mean, when we were working together, you'd connected me with a woman, Samantha Keen, who does really, I don't know exactly what her work is called. Maybe you do. But it's, emotional essentially. And I've done some other emotional work of the past year, shadow work, breath work, etc. A lot of it involves kind of going into your life story, then doing some physical breath work, and then crying your eyes out, basically. When you do feel like you go into your childhood. Some people report going pre their own life into their past lives and whatnot. But what stuck with me was the physical relief I would have of my symptoms was more significant after those sessions than anything else I was doing. Like, no matter what, there was a point where the physical mattered more, but then it got to a point where the physical wasn't doing as much, or the physical slash pharmacological, and I needed the emotional thing. So can we talk about what in the world, that's a connection that's probably hard for people to appreciate unless they've been through it.
It's such a big and important subject, and I'll try to explain it. It's the mystical, it's the magical, it's the metaphysical. It's hard to put in words, but
Mm-hmm.
the best I can try here is that humans are masters of lying to themselves. Okay, we experience painful events at young ages, and we simply cannot digest the totality of what happened in that moment, and this creates a habitual pattern of repression, of lack of honesty. Now a kid is not going to lie to themselves consciously, right? But as adults we start to more, I think, I would say dishonesty becomes more prevalent. But what I'm trying to say is that you have these emotional charges that occur in a human being. You look at animals in nature, and when they have something really intense happen, they shake it off and they fly, they flap
Mm-hmm.
their wings, and they do something to decharge the situation, what it creates for them electrically. But children don't know how to do that. And in fact, they usually just get taught to like be quiet when they're crying, right? So you end up having this mechanism that kicks in, which makes people feel small, tight, wound up, afraid of other people, and just generally afraid of themselves, right? And then there's all this repression that comes on top of that. And these emotions, these charges, they never go away. The body keeps the score, and they accrue and they compound, and people live out these patterns over and over and
Hmm.
over again. And it gets louder and louder and louder until the point where they have to do drugs, they have to take Adderall, they have to do all these things, they have all these compensation techniques to make up for it, but they feel very empty inside. They feel disconnected from themselves. They feel repressed. And conscious with their mind, they might be crushing business. They might be multimillionaire.
Hmm.
It doesn't matter because it's not true. And you're the man of sovereignty. Sovereignty is your movement, right? And I would love to say something about this, which is
Hmm.
it doesn't matter how much money someone has, even if it's all in Bitcoin. If they
So
don't
true.
have, if they don't have emotional freedom, they don't have
Yeah.
sovereignty. Because
Yeah.
I've met billionaires and I've worked with billionaires who
Mm.
are complete and utter slaves to their childhood. What do I mean
Hmm.
by that? Well, they became so rich so that they could get respected. They became so rich so that mom will like me, so that dad will like me. There's always a so that. And that
Yeah.
thing stays with them forever. And they never can actually be present and be happy with their achievements. Right. And so this whole thing that happens is just that people forget their subconscious, they forget deep emotional layers, and they go into the world, they put their consciousness out into the world, they're achieving, accomplishing, and they forget what's inside here. This is a
Hmm.
very, very sensitive vessel. We have a lot of emotions, a lot of terrain in there, and we all need containers to actually slow the avalanche of the outer world down and actually connect to what's happening inside and to own
Hmm.
it, to look at it, to release it. And this creates biological harmony when we do this. And this is, in my opinion, one of the equal to toxins is just emotional
Hmm.
repression. And
Right.
go ahead, go ahead.
And this is just so, like, again, outside the mainstream medical paradigm
Mhm.
that I like to describe it that we're still overcoming the Newtonian hangover, where we think the world is physical and material and, billiard ball like particles, linear cause and effect, and all of that. But we transcended that a long time ago, right? With quantum and relativity and all of these things. Like, we know scientifically that there is no substance actually at the essence of reality. It's all vibrational. And I just don't think we've fully absorbed the implications of that. So, like, even the, emotions, energy and motion, if that energy doesn't move correctly through your body, I've seen those videos you mentioned too, where like a polar bear will go and have some, traumatic fight, and then it will go lay in the ground and just shake for like 20 minutes, just convulsively shake to release the emotions. And he goes on about his polar bear business. We don't do that, right? We go through the childhood trauma or whatever, and we just, especially as men in the US, it's like, just bottle it up, bro. Just keep bottling
Yes.
it up. And
Intellectualize it. Yeah.
yeah, intellectualize it. Like, there's all these things I've been guilty of. Bottling it up, escaping into the world of symbols. A lot of successful guys that I know too. We had dinner the other night with, this was a few months ago, 3 guys, and, but they're all kinda activated, awake guys, and they were all very forthcoming and saying, "Yeah, the reason I'm so successful is because of this fucked up thing that happened to me when I was a kid, and I spent my whole life trying to escape from it, and so then I got this level of success, and then I realized I have all these problems, and I gotta go do this work." A lot of these guys are like Joe Dispenza acolytes and whatnot.
Mhm.
So, it's so true, and, like, what is it what is it about, is it's just like, okay, it seems to me like all growth is traumatic. A lot of guys I hear talk about distinguish between capital T trauma and lower T trauma. It's like, working out is traumatic. Everything that you do, every motion in space and time, like, creates some friction or stress in the body, and you have to grow through that. But the capital T trauma is something more like, I don't know, these psychic events, spiritual events that we just can't handle. And then, so what's happening? Like, so
Mm.
something bad happens in your childhood, and the energy of that situation, your current frame cannot process, so you just absorb it. Like, what's going on there?
I love the question, and I would never be able to answer this in a a good way. Oh, I have to think about this, but I'll try. Okay, I'll try because it's such a beautiful question. Um, so I never heard the capital T and lowercase t trauma. I've never heard
Mhm,
that.
mhm,
But what I would say what makes the difference between those two things is when a person is no longer reacting to the initial event, then I think
mm,
it becomes a path of something of growth. I think what happens is something happens, even what in Sanskrit they call it samskara, which is a Sanskrit for wound. And
mhm,
it doesn't actually matter the intensity of what happened to a person. It matters how intense their reaction was and if that reaction was presenced afterwards. Because the thing is, you can have someone who, gets in like a whatever, sees like a gunfight at the age of 3 years old, but then, in their consciousness, they just think that it's like a fireworks or something, right? And,
mhm,
and they don't actually register it as anything. You can have a kid who, a parent would put like a little puppy on their neck and the kid
mhm,
freaks out and has just a total
mm,
traumatic experience to it, even though it was relatively harmless. And the parents just let him cry and he cried and cried and cried and never got any soothing. And then that thing becomes a samskara, right? Which is a
I
cut,
see.
a wound, something that wasn't presenced, something that they couldn't handle on their own.
Mm,
And so what I think happens is that these things, but by the way, I think it also happens from many lives in my experience with all
mhm,
ayahuasca
sure.
I've fried myself
Yeah.
with. I saw that there were other lives of trauma and other lives of major things happening to me. So I think you just like you said, the human cannot handle what happened. They don't know how to
Mhm,
register it, and it gets put in a corner, and there's a reaction and a compensation that occurs, and this is when what becomes like an automatic new habit, new pattern, and that's when I think it would be considered trauma with a
I
capital
see.
T. Yeah.
It takes me back to this quote. I think I've been mentioning it on every podcast recently, but Carl Jung, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will continue to direct our life and we will call it fate. So it's like it is this process of bringing these unconscious patterns into consciousness and then doing something with them. And again, for the materialist out there, this doesn't have to be a woo woo spiritual past life thing. Like you could look at it more practically. It's like, okay, again, we're in an E equals MC squared paradigm, right? Energy and mass are interchangeable. All of the experiences of your ancestors are vibrationally encoded in your DNA somewhere, right? That's literally what evolution is, right? It's just the entrainment of the organism to the environment. So you are the tip of the, genetic spear of your entire lineage. That's not to say like you have, you could go as woo woo with it as you want or as materialist as you want, but it's like still factual basically. Um, so maybe we could go there then.
Oh, I'd like to comment on
Mysticism.
that
Yeah, please.
because going more towards like, the wounding with our parents, like in an ideal world, imagine, look, how you're going to be a good dad with all the work that you've done. You are a dad. You already are a dad,
I
right?
am a dad. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you are a good dad. And the thing is, because you've done a ton of work on yourself in the emotional arenas, think about, I mean, for me personally, like our parents, my parents, as amazing as human beings as they are, they didn't have good love. They didn't have care. They didn't have, their nervous system was fried and fractured by the time they were young. And they had all of this stuff that was just branded on them. And then
Mhm,
they basically unconsciously tried, gave that to me. Again, it wasn't that
mhm, mhm,
they tried their best, but in an ideal world, a human being is filled with love and care and attentiveness and presence, and they're not addicted to things, and they give that to the children, and that does something
mhm,
to the nervous system. So trauma is also basically just not having a level of attention, care, and love that the human organism needs. We need it just biologically.
mhm.
Forget about interpretation or spirit or this or that. The human vehicle needs that level of care to actually develop on a cellular level, on a nervous system level. That's trauma, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, it's well said. I mean, and there's a lot of scientific backing to that, right? I think this was in Prussia. I forget where it was. It was in a European country at some point where there were too many children being born. They didn't have enough caretakers for the infants, so the infants spent a lot of time alone. And if they didn't get enough, interaction with a loving, caring adult, then those infants were like permanently messed up, right? They permanently couldn't establish social bonds and all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
So this is not, again, not like just an emotional want. It is like a physiological need of humans to have this, good relationships, love, all et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I wanted to go because I've developed this new appreciation for the idea of mysticism.
Hmm.
And where again, I used to just associate this term with the woo woo, oh, it's the woo woo. It's like all that stuff that people think works for whatever reason, but it's probably mostly placebo and it's definitely a lot of bullshit and,
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. It's all, even though I was not operating in like the Newtonian paradigm, I guess I didn't take E equals MC squared seriously enough. Um, but now I've come to see it as more like, we're very limited in what we can communicate, as you said earlier, with words or with even with numbers and symbols, other languages like money. Like there's only so many things these languages can communicate. And there's most of reality that cannot even be sensed, touched, perceived, much less communicated by any of our languages. And so I've come to see mysticism as more of like that deep epistemic humility. We're like, oh, here's all that we can possibly know. And we're this tiny little sphere, this atomic sphere in a universe of dimensions and things that we cannot comprehend. And so the mysticism is just the outer layer of that sphere trying to gesture towards these things that are incomprehensible. And I don't know, it sounds like a woo-woo stuff as I say it, but it's like I really think that's true. And all the greatest thinkers across history have arrived at similar conclusions. There's the quote that summarizes this is the first sip from the glass of the natural sciences will make you an atheist, but by the bottom of the glass, you'll find God.
Hmm.
It's like when you pursue these questions deep enough, whichever way you want to come at it, you end up in the domain of the mystical. So I wanted to just like hear your opinion on the modern framing of the mystical and what we have wrong about
Mhm. It's so beautiful what you just said, man. You better make a reel out of that one. um,
it. Thank
so,
you.
yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that you just said. And, Rudolf Steiner is an amazing teacher, and he talks about the materialistic cutoff, right? The Luciferic forces and the Ahrimanic forces, and how even if you look at holistic health, a lot of things are just about fixing dials, right? Like just or even biohackers and stuff. It's all just still about fixing this physical vehicle without
Mhm.
being attentive to the metaphysical or to the spiritual. Like a perfect example is, I have a hot tub now, this new house that I just bought, and it came with the house, and I didn't really want to deal with a hot tub, but so I call the guy and he's like, I try to find out how often I have to clean the water. And he's like, oh, you know what? We use these chemicals where you don't need to clean it for about 9 months, even if you use it every day. And I was like, wait a minute, that's absolute bullshit. Because yes, maybe it kills the bacteria. Maybe the chemicals zap everything that's, toxic in there on a chemical level. But what about the metaphysical, which is that there's energy in that hot tub? There's energetic
Mhm.
off gassing that happens when you go in there, time after time after time. It holds energy, just like salt
Mhm.
tanks, like flotation tanks. I remember asking the guy, how often do you clean the water? He's like, well, we only need to do it every couple months. And he's like 10 people a day coming in there because we use a UV filter. And I was like, but because I had the worst dreams that I used a float tank, like the last time I did it was probably like 8 years ago. And I had the worst nightmarish dreams that night.
Hmm.
I could feel there was just so much toxicity in my system from that experience. And of course, salt pulls energy. Salt is cleansing. So the salt is just pulling all of the energy from all the people. They're off gassing their etheric energy and it's just sitting there in the tub. But yes, there's no
Hmm.
bacteria because of the UV light. So that to me, that is the representation of materialistic versus
Mm.
metaphysical. And there's a
Boom.
split there. There's a lack of understanding that it is connected. If you want to be whole, you have to understand different properties, even properties of food. Food has energetic properties. Different treatments have energetic properties. It's like, it's all about the vitamins and the minerals and the test results, but things have energetic properties, right? I
Yes.
recently did a $12,000 treatment in Europe, which was called apheresis. Okay. And it pulled out all of my, like 3/4 of my blood and filtered it through a crazy sea sponge, this patented sea sponge, and filtered it of heavy metals and chemicals and toxins. And it was interesting, but I didn't feel good after it. Okay. Because
Mm.
your blood is an energetic substance that has metaphysical properties, and it altered something. Okay. And I think it's good for certain people, but there was a deeper context I had for it versus just removing of heavy metals, right?
Right.
There's an energetic thing there. So um, that's really to bridge that world, and for people to understand both, I think will create so much more harmony. And that we'll call that the Luciferic agenda, which is what Rudolf Steiner talked about, which is just pulling the human away from the soul.
Mm.
Um, and so yes, the metaphysical, I think psychedelics are the perfect gateway into understanding that there's more. For me, when I
Yeah.
started drinking a lot of ayahuasca, I realized, wow, there's so much more on this planet that I cannot see or understand. But I fundamentally think that the goal is to be able to achieve those types of states with breath, with will, with intention. And
Yes.
those substances are just little door openers that get you thinking and get you, changing a little bit. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a
I'll start.
good framing. And the psychedelics are definitely like the shortcut into seeing what you typically can't see, as you said, or knowing that there's so much beyond what you typically think you know. But ultimately, I agree, actually, and I think breath. What the other thing that's been very powerful is I have some experience with psychedelics, but my most intense psychedelic experiences have been on breath work. Actually,
Mhm.
the breath alone is all you really need to go to crazy places, to put it lightly. But healing, like not, I shouldn't say crazy, like good,
Because you want to go
intense.
in your body. In the body is where the healing happens, right?
Yes. Yeah. And when it feels almost like out of body in a way, like you're in the cosmos or something, or in past life. Like, I don't know. It's very powerful, but
Yeah.
usually ends up with a lot of tears, like kind of laughing and crying. You get to this edge of like joy and grief somehow like come together. Like everything's the opposites start to unite at the bottom of reality. And anyways, it can be extremely therapeutic. So you don't have to go to the Amazon to drink a bunch of ayahuasca. You can do these things through breath work. Um, I do want to ask you about, well, I don't know. Is there anything you wanted to respond to there? I want to ask you about peptides because that's something
Okay.
I know when we were working together, you had me try BPC 157. It was limited success for me then, but I've been started taking peptides again this year around July, and I've done much higher doses of BPC 157, and I've added TB 500, KPV, GHKCU, like this stack that the BPC 157 and TB 500 they call the Wolverine stack, so it helps you heal really fast, and these other things also help with that process, but it's been remarkable. Like the leaky gut symptoms that I've been dealing with for 10 years, like within 3 months of a very intensive peptide regimen, it seemed like it actually made a very big, substantial difference. So what are your views on peptides and the utility
Yeah.
of those?
Yeah. We'll close up the metaphysical here and move into move into the
Yeah.
physical,
Yeah.
which is, um, I like them. I think that they're good additions, but I don't think, for me, I haven't experienced them as being, deep root cause healers.
Hmm.
But I've only taken about 4 or 5 of them. The BPC TB, that's a really good one. The Which other ones have I taken? The one for growth hormone, which is CJC ipamorelin,
Yes. I like that one too.
gonadorelin for testosterone. These are things that I cycle on and off. I'll use them for like 3 or 4 weeks here and there, and then I'll stop for a few months. I
Mhm.
like them. They're very, very good. I don't understand them fully on a scientific level. I just know how it feels when I put them in my body, and I think they're great. I just don't think they are the answer, if you will.
Mhm. So adjuncts, but not core healing modalities.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. So there's a very special place called the farm at Okefenokee. It's a 1,000 acre regenerative farm community about 45 minutes northwest of Jacksonville, Florida. The farm is a completely off grid community. It has total food, water, and energy independence. Everything on the farm is 100% organic, and it even features wild boar and bear hunting. The farm at Okefenokee is right next to the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, where you can do camping and canoeing tours. So if you're like me and you're interested in the self-sovereign lifestyle, then you can get your own lot on the farm at Okefenokee if you tell them that I sent you. Once you get a lot, you can build one of 3 custom cabin options. So if you value freedom, self-sovereignty, and living in touch with nature, then join me and my family. We have lot number 21, and we're going to be building a cabin there starting December 2025. To learn more about the farm at Okefenokee, go to okefarm.com and make sure to tell them that I sent you. What is the core? So, I mean, we probably already said this, but like, if someone were to ask you that question, what is the core healing modality for most people? Is it straight to the emotional work? Or well, we need to go through that toxin layer as you
The
described.
toxins, yeah. From my lens, I can't say this is the ultimate
Yeah.
truth. From my lens and what happened to me and how I view the world, I would say it's the emotional healing and the samskaric and all of that, were the wound
Hmm.
healing combined with actually removing toxins from the system, because the
I see.
toxins create the inflammation. They create
Got it.
the cellular disharmony. So you remove toxins from the gut, you remove toxins from the liver, from the organs, from the brain. Cleaning this brain with things like melatonin, liposomal or suppositories, glutathione. Melatonin, glutathione, how to chelate the brain is phenomenal. Okay.
Hmm.
So anything that can protect and heal the brain and heal things on an intracellular level where that cell becomes electrically correct with the right minerals, that is how a human being heals, because the body is unbelievable at being able to repair and restore once it has what it needs. And then also sleep. Sleep is going to be part of the core. Self honesty is going to be part of the core. Um, but yes, I do. But I also believe remineralization. So detox is just a fancy word, or a word that gets thrown around a lot. But you can't detox unless you also have the right minerals and you also
Hmm.
have regeneration. So the peptides are amazing for regeneration. Okay. But you still need to remove toxins from the cell. Okay, so that's, we call it. There's restore, right, which is where you like rejuvenate, restore. Then there's remove, and then there's another pillar which I'm forgetting the R because I didn't write the 3 R's.
It's all good.
One of my coaches did, but it's generally a process of removing but also restoring. These are 2 very
Hmm.
very important things to keep in balance.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Back to the idea of it has to be done in layers, right? So the other thing, yeah, this is a good takeaway, I think, for anyone that's new to this sort of health space or self care space, whatever we want to call this. It is a journey. It is a journey, not a destination. I know when I first started, I was just like, as I came to you, I'm like, hey, I got A, B, C, D
Fix
problems.
me.
I want to fix them. Let's fucking go. Like very masculine solution space minded, but you have to realize that the vaster universe is the feminine, right? It's this chaotic, emotional, spiritual, etc. So yeah, be patient. Um, you know, just know that it's a journey. That would be like that would have been very valuable insight. Although even you said that to me at the beginning, it's like you still don't like fully appreciate it until you kind of learn the hard way.
Yeah.
And so I've reached this point now where, and this is also part of the spiritual work, I've learned to have gratitude for the symptoms, gratitude for the issues that I have because they've actually made me super healthy in a lot of ways. Like I've gotten so concerned and conscious about all the things that I eat and do. And I'm like, man, I've become the finely tuned instrument as you once described. It's like, I think you use the metaphor of like, as the body becomes a more finely tuned instrument, you become more sensitive to things, right? So now if I go eat McDonald's, well, you get, bet your ass I'm going to feel it, like, because I'm attuned to what it feels like to eat and be healthy. And if I just throw some garbage in, then I'm going to feel that. So it's a trade off, right? Like you don't just get on this journey and then like, I don't know, you don't heal and then you're like, oh, now I can do whatever I want again. Like it's a lifestyle. Um,
Especially the deeper someone goes, like you went and you are going very deep into yourself, and that creates the Stradivarius violin, like the finely tuned instrument that's a pain in the ass to tweak and it requires a lot of maintenance and work, but it's the best violin in the world, right? You can't
Mhm.
find other violins that can play those notes. But so that I do view the human vehicle like that as well.
Yeah, it's also can be expensive. I
Yeah,
think you
absolutely. But you
shared
make more money being a finely tuned instrument.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
You've I mean, this is something you used to talk about. We don't have to talk about it if you don't want to, but like you mentioned to me at one point, like how much money you spent on your health journey, trying these different things. Like, not to shock people, but like just to give them an idea of how many different things you've done and been through.
Oh, I don't even have a figure, but it's at this point, it's easily $2 million or more, easily, probably at this point more. Um, so yeah, well, I get to be in a fortunate situation now where my career is health. So,
Yep.
I can spend money on health and it be a business, part of the business as
Hmm.
well. But
Hmm.
back then, even before I owned the detox dudes, I still had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands. And I was in $80,000 plus in debt as well.
Hmm.
But yes, at this point, I have spent $2 million, and it's like an experiment, and it's like a game. But what I will say is, when you wisely and calmly and in a grounded fashion spend money on your health, I do believe it has like a 4-to-1 return. That's what I've
Hmm.
observed. It has a 4-to-1 return. Not when you're impulsive or when you're just like, let me try this and let me try that. But when you're grounded, when you're plugged in and you're like, I want to try this experiment, even if it challenges
Yeah.
your bank account or makes you scared, it these things, even if it doesn't heal you, when you're on that line of truth with yourself and you're genuinely curiously searching for answers, I do observe that it provides returns, because
Yeah.
this your health is, your vibration is so important. How you show up in the world is a direct correlation to what comes to you. And that's part of the interesting thing at the retreats, the Spirit of Man retreats, because you mentioned something before, and I wanted to just touch up on it, which is, when you don't do the trauma work, you don't actually know how you show up to a room. You don't
Hmm.
actually know how much these wounds are affecting you and affecting the way other people view you and feel you. People, so a lot of people have no idea how they actually flavor a room.
Hmm.
And sometimes we'll have people at these retreats who are like multi millionaires. They think they have everything under control. They think they're an ideal perfect man, and they get into the circle and no one wants anything to do with them. And they're like, and we're trying to give feedback like, man, this is how you flavoring the room. And that is what I'm talking about when I talk about dishonesty, and I'm
Hmm.
going on a tangent here, but the point is that when you don't do that work, you don't know how you show up to a room, and that can impact things. It impacts your family, it impacts your work,
Hmm.
and these subtleties are very important in life, I've noticed.
Dude, it's such an excellent point, and it's something I continue to work on and learn about myself. It's like, and as a man, I think it takes a long time for you to come to the realization, the imprint or the flavor you leave or bring to a room. Um, and so for me, like what I've discovered, like I'm a large guy, I'm a big presence. If I come in and my sort of standard mode because of growing up the way I grew up or whatever is like very white knuckle, get it done, no
Dominate.
smiles, let's just get results, like go, go, go. And then I have had to learn though that actually is totally counterproductive. If you just come into the room with this like it's like an anxious energy, you're really just trying to be results oriented. You have all these descriptors of why it's the right thing to do. But the reality is, no matter what business or endeavor you're engaged in, you're in the people business. And so if you are just putting that vibe into people that like, oh, it's just like he's anxious, I feel anxious, everyone's on edge, people are going to perform worse. And so there's this weird thing where like I've tried to turn this corner where it's like, oh, everything, the point of life is to enjoy it. So if you're not enjoying the process, whether that's your work or whatever the thing, the admin, anything you have to do, not to say that it's supposed to be the most fun thing in the world, but find a way to make it light, find a way to accept it, find a way to like bring good energy into all of these situations and watch. how things like problems get solved easier, people are happier, like everything just flows better. Whereas, it's almost like you do kind of create your own reality. If you come in and you just want to fight and have problems, it's like, well, you're gonna have a shitload of problems, and like people are gonna feel anxious, and that's gonna create blow ups. So there's like a masculinity thing where it's like you can't just be this hard ass go 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 guy. You need to find this other side of you that will actually get you what you thought you were going for with the hard ass approach.
So well said, man. So that better be a reel as well. Timestamp. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, I
Yeah.
mean, I have to
Really
thank
well
you though,
said.
because like you were I mean, I've worked with several people, but you were there at the beginning of this whole journey for
Yeah.
me. And
Yeah.
so there were things you were saying to me when we first met about the woo woo and these things. And I'm like, I wasn't buying it. I wasn't having it.
Yeah.
I wasn't ready for it, basically.
Yeah.
But I've continued down the path. And now I'm like, okay, he was right.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you just mention real quick a couple lines of what you just said before, or just the subject? Because I had a whole download about it, but I forgot
Oh,
exactly what you
sorry.
said.
Sorry. I was just saying that you need to be like the hard ass approach is actually
That's it. That's it. I got it.
counterproductive.
I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they call that Mars and Venusian energy, which is like the Mars warrior, the soldier, the David Goggins, like dominate,
Hmm.
win. And then the Venus, which we classically think that we need to get that from women, where it's like the
Hmm.
woman will help heal me, the woman will allow me to relax, then I can regenerate and then go back to my work. That's actually, I would say a bit of a tale or fable. Like the real thing is you have both inside. We
Hmm.
have the Venusian energy inside, and it makes the Mars stronger. It allows the Mars to rest. It makes the Mars wiser. Because when you look at
Yes.
guys who are only Mars, sometimes they're a little dumb. All right.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're a little dumb, and you watch them, and it's like, okay, they're powerful, they're intimidating, they get shit done, and they're rich, but they're a little dumb somewhere, right?
Hmm.
And they're burning the candle at both ends, and it's not a sustainable model. And that's where Venusian energy comes in, aka feminine, right? And we all have that.
Yes.
And it's like we're terrified of it, but it's so valuable when you learn it.
Dude, 100%, like respecting the polarity. You know who does really good at this actually is Joe Dispenza at his retreats.
Mhm.
He'll like hit you with all this knowledge, science and knowledge for 10 or 15 seconds, giving you really good downloads. And then he'll put a joke in there. And it's like this movement between like, kind of masculine informational download and then just a lighthearted joke. Everyone's sort of laughing about it. It gives everyone a reset. And he's just like moving like a wave through hours and hours of his seminars. And like that's kind of, I mean, that's a metaphor, I guess, but that's sort of what we're talking about. It's like you need to give the masculine rest and the feminine, vice versa, right? You need to be able to switch
Yes.
between these polarities to address the world basically, because different situations and different scenarios
Yes.
call for different approaches.
Totally.
Um, breath work. We mentioned it earlier. Like, is this something, this seems pretty, again, I've had the most intense psychedelic experiences of my life using breath work. Is it something you recommend people do daily? Like, do you have a daily practice?
I have a
How do you think about
meditation
it?
practice, but it doesn't involve like deep breath work. It's more just witnessing my breath. But I've seen miraculous transformations through the breath work process. It's kind of like a psychedelic, right? It's self induced.
Mhm.
And so it's a great practice. I think it's life altering. Ultimately, I find that the day by day, the way someone lives day by day is the most important thing. There's no one tool. Like breath work is awesome,
Mhm.
but you don't need breath work in order to heal. The most important is just the day by day subtlety of stress, trauma, toxins, and tension, and learning where you are in the interface of those four. I'm happy to talk more about it, but most people are adding those things on each day. If you can learn how to remove those things and de-stress, and release tension, that's when I think the body heals, no matter what you do, whether it's
Mhm.
breath work, whether you do psychedelics, whatever path you end up taking, as long as you have the ability to work on those four items.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, you mentioned the retreats that you do, the Spirit of a
Yeah.
Man retreat.
Mhm.
Could we just talk a little bit about that? I mean, I know we've actually done some retreats. It's been very valuable. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, just connecting with people what we kind of went through some different modalities and did some, Temescal, sweat lodge, and cold plunging, like, and workout together. And it's like something about the camaraderie with men, and like it was
Yeah,
all men. So you just get to, I don't know, go into some of these things that men often don't, at least in our Western culture, they don't talk about it or go into that much.
yeah,
What's the value here? Like, what is the what
sure.
should people be expecting to get from retreats like yours? If you're a Bitcoiner, you need the Orange Club app. It's where you can connect with other sovereign individuals locally and globally. It's great for when you travel to meet local Bitcoiners, to go to Bitcoin meetups, and to discover local merchants that accept sats. No distractions, no noise, just real Bitcoiners. So download the Orange Club app today and find your local Bitcoin tribe.
So, Spirit of a Man retreats, as well as detox, right, which is like my core offering. We're helping people purify their bodies physically, and of course emotionally as well. There are these in-person retreats that we run. We also are going to start working with women next year. But basically, in all my training, I've trained in many different techniques and different schools and shamanism and Landmark Forum and the Clair Vision School, which is Samantha is a practitioner in the Clair Vision School, which is what you participated in.
Mhm.
And there's all these different techniques that I've learned and worked with for many, many years. And I developed my own technique based on everything that I've learned and all the pain that I've been through. And it's basically a technique which allows a revealing of the inner world of a man, irrespective of his bank account, of his physical stature, his strength, his ability to fight. There's something deep inside each human being. We call it the belly in the spirit of a man, which it's like an inner animal, an inner strength, an inner beast. And it's not always needing to be violent. By the way, there's when people have a lot of inner power, they're sometimes very, very poised. Even like a guy like Anderson
Mhm.
Silva, right? Like he's a wild animal, but he's not screaming at you. He's
Mhm.
so poised. So it's not doesn't always look outwardly like some sort of fight, but we help men get access to their bellies, which is this primal reservoir of life force, this primal thing inside that each person has, but they've been scared to touch it, or they've been afraid, or they don't know what it looks like, or they don't know how to authentically connect to it. And we basically I have a technique which allows people to give feedback to one another about what is authentic. Is someone
Mhm.
speaking from a character, from wanting to be liked, from wanting to look good, or are they truly being authentic to what is actually happening inside their vehicle? This concept of authenticity is very, very hard to find in the world, and especially in America. We thrive on shows like the one my wife was watching last night, where they're doing the real estate in Laguna Beach. These on Netflix, the OC or something. I don't know what is it called.
Mhm.
Where
I
they're
don't know.
selling
I
real
don't watch
estate.
TV.
Anyway, yeah, stay away from it. But
Yeah.
it's a lot of makeup. It's a lot of false things. It's a lot of looking good. A lot of appearance. These retreats are about what is really happening in the human being and in the soul and in their heart and in their belly,
Mm.
underneath all the facades and all of the BS. And it highlights it, and it's really hard to hide in these scenarios. And that's what people are hungry for. A lot of people are hungry for that. They want something real. They want something anchored in truth. And that's all we care about at these retreats. It's truth. It's not about what I say or it's what
Mm.
is the truth and what is the authentic expression of this human being. And we don't settle for less.
That's super cool. I do want to come to one at some point.
Yeah,
It's been, we've had tricky scheduling stuff, but I do want to come.
absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful, in like the philosophical sense of the word beauty. They say beauty is when appearances reveal truth. It's like that's seems like kind of what you're aimed at. It's like you're trying to help us men who are accustomed to living in the world and putting all the layers and bottling it up. It's like you need to get through the layers, get to the bottom of who you are, and then act from that core. Um, yeah, it seems like a beautiful mission.
Yeah, and at least own the things, right? Because what we've noticed in the retreats is that when someone doesn't own their shadows or own like the little boy, they end up
Hmm.
wearing it almost like a jacket that everyone can tell, even if they're really strong, really rich, really jacked. There's something there that's very boyish or compensating. And it's like as soon as they touch the depth of space where they were hurt and they actually acknowledge their vulnerability, it's like they take that jacket off. It's not even they have to like radically transform the wound. Even just seeing the wound and owning it
Yeah.
allows them to actually show up in a different vibration. Because whatever we repress, we just enabling. We're just like
Yeah.
fostering essentially, right? So it's not even about this perfect mastery over the wound. It's literally like,
Hmm.
hey, did you know that you're actually running away from that thing? And here's why. And here's what you really are underneath that. And then more freedom, more sovereignty.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you brought up the word sovereignty, because that, again, it's making the unconscious conscious. And as you said this earlier, right? It doesn't matter how much money you have, how much power you have, how much influence you have. If you are possessed by your moods, or, your passions, your appetites, like whatever it is, unless you've integrated that kingdom within you, well, then you're not sovereign. It doesn't. You can be the richest man in the world, richest, most famous man in the world, and you still wouldn't be sovereign. Um, so that's wonderful. I think I've probably kept you long enough.
Mhm.
Do you have any closing words of wisdom, or please let people know where they can find you on the internet?
Sure. Yeah. Just work on yourself. There's nowhere to run. There's nowhere to hide. There's no accomplishment that will allow you to not work on yourself in the long haul. Right? There's nothing. There's nowhere else to go in this universe. That's what I
Hmm.
discovered. And yeah, the Detox Dudes is my company. I have a new YouTube channel called Joshua Macin, Macin, a Twitter Joshua Macin, and an Instagram Joshua Macin. And yeah, I hope you guys work on emotionally, spiritually, physically, detoxify your bodies. When you clean and purify this antenna, wild things happen spiritually and emotionally and financially. So clean this antenna is the best advice I can give to any human being in 2025. And then
Nice.
when I
Makes a
say
great
antenna, it's
t-shirt.
because this is a receiver of consciousness, not the generator, which is the
Yes.
Newtonian principle there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yes. So, well, dude, thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you for helping me early on in my journey. And I hope there are some men out there that need to hear this, that hear this.
Thanks for having me on.
We lock our doors, we encrypt our hard drives, and we use strong passwords. But most people leave one thing wide open: their phone line. SIM swap attacks are one of the fastest growing methods of digital theft. In minutes, a hacker can clone your accounts, reset your passwords, and drain your life. Unfortunately, this is not science fiction. It happens every single day. Efani is the only mobile service protection designed exclusively to protect you from SIM swap attacks. Efani offers military-grade encryption on their product and offers up to $5 million of SIM swap insurance. And to date, there have been exactly 0 SIM swaps on any of Efani's over 50,000 protected accounts. So you don't need to live in fear, you just need to protect your weakest link. Go to efani.com/breedlove to secure your phone line today. Again, that's Efani, EFANI.com/breedlove. For the past 25 years, I've been reading roughly one book per week. Almost entirely difficult nonfiction books, the kind that really shift your thinking. Books on physics, money, power, psychology, spirituality, and philosophy. The real stuff. But I get it. Most people don't have time to read 50 books per year. So I hand selected my favorite nonfiction books and distilled each one of them into a course that you can take in 50 to 100 times faster than it would take you to read the entire book. Each course gives you the key insights, mental models, and frameworks that matter. We launched with 15 book courses, and we are building toward a library of 100 by the end of year 1. So if you are a seeker of truth, wisdom, and personal growth, then my book course is for you. To sign up, go to course.breedlove.io. Again, that's course.breedlove.io. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, click here to find more just like it, and here to find our most recent episode. Also, make sure to like this video to help shine light on the corruption of money, and be sure to subscribe to this channel to stay connected.